The camp was loud, crowded, and full of shadows. Smoke from broken machines and burned plastic always hung in the air. The ground was muddy, covered with garbage, old boxes, and food that nobody wanted. Among this filth, a small alien girl moved, quietly. Her clothes were torn, her face pale, and her eyes large like two shining moons. She was hungry, very hungry. She bent down, searching under tables, fighting dogs and rats for scraps of food. To the people around her, she was nothing, less than nothing. They laughed and called her a dog. She heard the insults, but she had no strength to answer. Hunger was louder than pain. Every day was the same. She waited near the trash piles, hoping that someone would drop a piece of bread or half a fruit. When she found something, she would hide quickly, afraid that bigger children or cruel guards would steal it from her. Her small hands shook when she ate. Sometimes she licked the plate after others just to taste something more. Her body was thin, almost bones and skin, but her eyes were still alive. They held a silent cry that nobody cared to hear. On that day, a human walked through the camp. He was not like the others. His clothes were old but clean, his steps strong but quiet. He was tall, with sharp eyes that noticed everything. Most people ignored him, thinking he was just another wanderer. But he stopped when he saw the girl. She was kneeling in the dirt, fighting with a stray dog for a piece of meat bone. The dog growled. She growled back, her tiny teeth biting into the hard edge. People around laughed loudly, pointing at her. "See the alien dog!" they shouted. The human's face grew dark. He walked closer. The girl froze. She expected a kick or a slap because that was what usually came when adults noticed her. Instead, the human crouched down and pushed the dog away with one firm hand. The animal barked but quickly ran. Then the human opened his small bag. From inside, he took out a piece of bread and a wrapped meal. Slowly, carefully, he held it out to the girl. She looked at him with wide, frightened eyes. Nobody gave food. Nobody. This had to be a trick. The human did not move. His hand stayed open, patient. For a long moment, the camp seemed to go silent. Finally, with trembling fingers, the girl reached out. She snatched the bread and pulled, it close to her chest like a treasure. She smelled it first as if she could not believe it was real. Then she took a bite, a desperate, messy bite. Tears rolled down her dirty cheeks as she ate. The human watched, but he did not laugh. His eyes softened. In that moment, he did not see a dog, he saw a child. People around whispered. Some laughed again, mocking the human now. "Why waste food on trash?" someone said. "She is not worth it," another voice added. But the human ignored them. His gaze stayed on the girl. When she finished the bread, she licked the crumbs from her hands, afraid to lose even a grain. Then she looked at him again, confused. No one had ever helped her before. She did not have words, not in her alien tongue, not in the common language. But her eyes spoke. They asked a question. Why? The human did not answer with words. He simply placed another small piece of food on the ground near her and stood up. He turned as if to leave. But the girl's small hand shot out. She grabbed the edge of his sleeve, weak but desperate. For a second she was afraid he would hit her. Instead he stopped and looked down at her. The crowd around watched with interest, like they were seeing a strange game. But to the girl it was no game. She was holding on to the first person who had ever treated her like she mattered. Her voice was dry, broken from hunger. She whispered one word, so soft that only he could hear it. Please. That word was not just about food. It was about life, about hope, about the wish to be seen as more than garbage. The human's chest tightened. He had seen many things in his life, many cruelties. But this small child, begging with her eyes and one single word, broke something inside him. In her he saw not just a starving alien girl, but something hidden, something precious. She was not a dog. She was not trash. She was someone worth saving. The guards shouted at him to move on. The people laughed again, but the human stayed still. He bent down, lifted the girl gently from the dirt, and held her in his arms. She was light, too light, almost like air. She did not fight him. She just rested her head on his chest, still clutching the food. The human turned his back on the mocking voices and started walking away. The crowd stared, some angry, some curious, none brave enough to stop him. As he walked through the camp, he felt the girl's breath against him, weak, shallow, but alive. He did not know her story yet. He did not know why she was alone, or how long she had been suffering. But he knew one thing. From this moment, her life would not be the same. He had seen more than a starving alien girl. He had seen a child who deserved to live, a child who carried dignity deep inside, hidden under dirt and fear. He had seen, princess where others saw a dog, and he decided silently, firmly, that he would never let her go back to the scraps again. The girl clung to him as he carried her out of the filthy corner of the camp. Her body was so light that he could feel every bone through her thin skin. People kept staring, some with mocking eyes, some with quiet anger, but he didn't stop. He walked until the noise of the camp faded behind them. His boots pressed into dry dust and the alien girl's head rested against his chest, half asleep but still holding the piece of bread like a treasure. He reached a small shelter he had built for himself, far away from the crowded camp. It was nothing special, just metal sheets and old ship parts fixed together, a roof to block the rain and a small fire pit in the center, but compared to the dirt corner where she lived, it looked like a palace. He set her down gently on a wooden box covered with a blanket. The girl blinked at her surroundings. Her wide eyes moved over the fire, the tools, and the small cooking pot. She looked both afraid and amazed, like she had stepped into another world. The human crouched near the fire and took out some food packets from his bag. He poured water into a metal cup and pushed it toward her. At first, she didn't move. Her hands trembled as she looked at the clear water. For years, she had drunk only from dirty puddles or rusted pipes. She thought maybe it was a trick, maybe poison. But the man gave her a nod, his face calm. Slowly, she lifted the cup and sipped. The water was fresh, cool, and clean. Her eyes watered again. She drank quickly, afraid it would vanish. Then he gave her a piece of dried meat, soft and easy to chew. She stared at it for a long time. Her mind whispered old warnings. Don't trust, don't take, don't believe. But her stomach screamed louder. She bit into it. The taste was real food, not scraps. She ate like a starving wolf, not caring about manners, stuffing pieces into her mouth. The human didn't stop her. He only watched quietly, making sure she didn't choke. When the food was gone, she sat back, wiping her dirty face with her sleeve. She looked at him carefully now. He was not like the others. His eyes were sharp, but there was no cruelty in them. His hands were strong, but gentle. He had not shouted, had not beaten her, had not laughed. He had given. That was new. That was impossible. Her small lips moved, searching for words. In her alien tongue, she whispered something soft, a word of thanks that no human could understand. But her tone carried the meaning. The man gave a slow nod, as if he understood anyway. For the first time in years, the girl felt safe enough to close her eyes for a moment. The warmth of the fire, the fullness in her stomach, the strange silence. Around her, it was different. She wasn't fighting rats, she wasn't digging through trash. She was breathing, resting. But safety never lasted in the camp world. Outside, whispers spread fast. People had seen the human carrying the alien child. Some said he was foolish. Others said he had stolen something valuable. The cruel guards grew suspicious. Why would a human protect an alien beggar? They wanted to know more. Greedy eyes began to follow him, waiting for a chance. Inside the shelter, the human was fixing a small bowl of soup. He added herbs and powder from his old supplies. The smell filled the air, soft and comforting. The girl woke and sniffed the air. Her big eyes followed every move he made. When he placed the bowl before her, she hesitated. This was too much kindness. Nobody gave this much. Slowly, she picked up the spoon, clumsy and unsure. She spilled some on her lap, but the man only smiled and showed her how to hold it better. She copied him, and soon she was eating carefully like a child learning for the first time. Her posture began to change. She no longer crouched like an animal. She sat straighter, lifted her head, and her hands moved slower, more graceful. The human noticed. Beneath the dirt, beneath the hunger, there was dignity, something hidden but strong. He could see it shining in her eyes. Not everyone would notice, but he did. After the meal, the girl crawled toward a corner and curled up on the blanket he had given her. Her small hands clutched the edge like it was a priceless gift. She looked at him one more time, unsure if he would push her away. But he didn't. He simply sat near the fire, sharpening a knife, pretending not to watch her. That small act of ignoring her gave her comfort. She closed her eyes and whispered the same word again. Please. But this time it sounded softer, almost peaceful. That night, as the fire burned low, the man could not sleep. He kept thinking about her. Why was she left alone? Where were her people? Why did she look so fragile, yet so unbroken? He did not have answers, but he had made a decision. He could not let her go back to the trash piles. She deserved more. And outside, in the shadows of the camp, greedy men whispered to each other. They had seen the little alien girl. They had seen the human give her food, give her care. And in their hearts, greed sparked, because they knew something the human did not. This child was not ordinary. She was a piece of treasure hidden in filth, and treasure always brought danger. The first kindness had been given, but kindness always came with a price. The morning light crept through the thin cracks of the shelter's walls. The fire had burned out hours ago, but the smell of smoke still lingered in the air. The little alien girl stirred in her sleep, curled up on the blanket he had given her. For the first time in years, her breathing was slow and steady. She wasn't shivering from cold or jerking awake from fear. The human sat nearby, watching her quietly as he cleaned his tools. He didn't make noise, but his mind was loud. He kept asking himself, "What am I doing?" He had seen many orphans in his life, both human and alien. Yet something about this child felt different. She was more than a starving girl in the dirt. When she whispered please last night, it was not only a plea for food, it was a cry for life. The girl opened her eyes slowly. For a moment, panic returned to her face. She looked around, not recognizing the place. Her hands clutched the blanket tight. Then her gaze landed on the human, and she froze. He wasn't angry. He wasn't reaching for a weapon. He simply nodded at her. A strange calm washed over her. The man stood, walked to an old chest in the corner, and pulled out something unexpected. Clothes. Not new, but clean. A small dress stitched from fabric he had traded long ago. He placed it in front of her. She stared at it, confused. She had worn the same rags for as long as she could remember. To her, clothes were just scraps tied together. She didn't understand. The human gestured toward her torn outfit. His voice was quiet but firm. "Change. These are for you." The girl blinked, unsure. Was this another trick? She touched the fabric with trembling fingers. It was soft, warmer than anything she had ever owned. Slowly, she pulled the rags off and slipped into the dress. It hung loosely on her thin frame. But the moment she stood, something changed. Her posture shifted, her shoulders lifted, her head rose just a little higher. The human noticed it immediately. She was still frail, still weak, but the dress gave her a strange glow. The dirt on her face and hands couldn't hide it. For the first time, she didn't look like a beggar. She looked like a child with dignity. He smiled faintly, but the girl didn't notice. She was busy touching the fabric again and again, as if afraid it would vanish. She turned toward a broken piece of mirror resting against the wall. When she saw her reflection, her breath caught. She touched her own cheek, her own hair, and then the dress. She had never looked at herself this way before. she whispered in her alien tongue, words too soft for him to understand, but the tone was clear. She couldn't believe she looked human. The man crouched beside her and spoke in a gentle voice. You don't have to live like an animal anymore. She tilted her head, not understanding the words, but the warmth in his tone reached her. As the day passed, he showed her small things. How to wash her hands before eating. How to sit properly while drinking water. How to chew slowly instead of swallowing food in fear. At first she copied awkwardly, spilling water and dropping spoons. But he never scolded her. He only corrected her gently. And little by little her movements grew smoother, more graceful. It was then he saw it. The spark. Hidden under hunger and dirt, there was something noble about her. She held herself like someone who once knew pride, like someone born for more. She wasn't just learning manners, she was remembering them. That evening, while she practiced sipping water without spilling, the man found himself thinking of his past. He once had a little sister years ago, before the war took everything from him. She too had large eyes and a curious smile. But she had died young, lost in the chaos of battle. He had buried the pain deep inside, never speaking of it. Now, watching, this alien girl, that buried wound opened again. Maybe that was why he couldn't leave her behind. But outside, the world was not kind. Rumors about the girl had spread. A group of rough men gathered near the edge of the camp, whispering. They had seen the girl cleaned, dressed, and sitting in the human's shelter. They didn't see a child. They saw value. Some thought she could be sold to collectors. Others believed she belonged to a powerful bloodline. Greed filled their eyes. Back inside, the girl finished her meal and looked at the man with something new in her gaze. Trust. She moved closer, clutching the blanket around her shoulders, and sat beside him. She leaned her head against his arm. The human froze for a moment. He wasn't used to this closeness. But when he looked down and saw her eyes half closed in peace, he couldn't push her away. He let her rest. He whispered to himself, "You're not trash. You're not a dog. You're something else." The girl didn't understand the words, but she felt the meaning in his tone. A tiny smile touched her lips before she fell asleep. Again, the spark of dignity had been lit, and while it gave her hope, it also drew the attention of dangerous eyes. The world outside the shelter was ready to take her away the moment they could. The human didn't know it yet, but by giving her kindness, he had stepped into a storm. The night was colder than usual. Wind howled through the broken metal walls of the camp, carrying the smell of smoke and rot. The little alien girl slept curled on the blanket, her thin chest rising and falling, safe for the moment. The human sat awake near the dying fire, sharpening a blade with slow strokes. His eyes were fixed on the doorway, alert. He knew peace in this place never lasted long. Rumors spread like poison. The men in the camp had noticed the girl's change. She was no longer crawling in the dirt like a stray. She was walking straighter, her face cleaner, her clothes new. To greedy eyes, that meant one thing: value. They whispered that she was rare, maybe part of a noble bloodline. If sold to collectors or traffickers, she could bring a fortune. From the shadows outside, a group of men watched the shelter. Their voices were low and cruel. "She's not ordinary," one said. "Doesn't matter what she is," another answered. "We take her. We sell her. The human can't stop us." "And if he fights?" "Then he dies." Inside, the human's sharp ears caught the faint sound of footsteps. He tightened his grip on the blade. His instincts, trained by years of surviving war and betrayal, screamed danger. He looked at the sleeping girl. She had no idea what waited beyond the walls. The men waited until the fire inside burned low. Then they moved silently, knives and iron rods in their hands. One pushed the door open, slow and careful. The human was already standing, blade in hand, his eyes cold. "You picked the wrong shelter," he said in a low voice. The intruders laughed. "Move aside, stranger. We only want the alien brat." At that moment, the girl woke. She sat up. rubbing her eyes and saw the shadows filling the doorway. Fear froze her body. She remembered nights when bigger children had dragged her into the dark to steal her food. But this felt worse, more dangerous. The human stepped between her and the men. His tall frame blocked their view. "She's not going with you," the leader sneered. "Why protect her? She's just trash. She eats scraps like a dog. But we know her worth. She's rare. She'll fetch a price you can't imagine. Move, or bleed." The human's jaw tightened. He had seen men like this before, men who preyed on the weak, who saw life as nothing but a trade. His voice came out hard. "You'll have to go through me." Tension snapped like a whip. One of the intruders lunged forward with a knife. The human moved fast, his blade flashing. Steel clashed, and in 2 heartbeats the attacker fell back, clutching a bleeding arm. The others hesitated. They had expected an easy fight. The girl gasped, clutching the blanket around her shoulders. She wanted to run, but her legs wouldn't move. All she could do was watch the human stand like an unshakable wall. The leader snarled, "Fine, kill him. Take the girl." Chaos exploded. 3 men rushed in at once. The human's blade danced in the firelight, blocking, striking, cutting. His movements were precise, not wild. He fought not for glory, but for survival, and for the child behind him. He pushed one man into the fire pit, sending flames leaping. Another he knocked unconscious with a crushing blow to the head. The leader charged with a heavy iron rod. The clash shook the small shelter. Metal struck metal, sparks flying. The human's muscles burned, but his resolve was iron. Behind him, the girl cried out, "No!" in her broken voice. Something inside the human hardened at her cry. With one final strike, he disarmed the leader and pressed his blade against his throat. The shelter fell silent except for heavy breathing. The other men staggered, wounded or frightened. "Leave," the human growled. "If I see you near her again, you won't walk away." The men backed out, dragging their leader with them, spitting curses, but their eyes still glowed with greed. This fight wasn't over. When the danger passed, the human lowered his weapon. He turned to the girl. She was trembling, her eyes wide with terror. For a moment he feared she would see him as another monster, another violent brute. But slowly she crawled forward and touched his arm. Her voice shook as she whispered one word again. "Please." He knelt down, resting a hand on her fragile shoulder. "I won't let them take you." His voice was steady, a promise carved in stone. Tears filled her eyes. She buried her face against his chest, sobbing softly. She had been taken, beaten, and thrown aside too many times. But this human, he fought for her. He risked himself for her. In that moment, a bond was sealed stronger than blood. Outside, the camp whispered louder than before. Some called him a fool. Others called him brave. But all agreed on one thing. By protecting the alien girl, he had painted a target on his back. The girl was no longer just a beggar. She was wanted, and the human knew the threats would only grow. He held her close, staring into the fire's dying glow. He had made a choice, and there was no turning back. The camp did not forget. By morning, the story of the fight had spread to every corner. Whispers grew into rumors, and rumors grew into danger. The human had faced armed men to protect a starving alien child. To some, he was a fool. To others, he was hiding something valuable. The girl had become more than a beggar now. She was a prize. The little alien girl sensed it too. As she clung to the human side, her wide eyes darted around the camp. Every look from strangers felt heavier, darker. People who once ignored her now stared as if she carried gold in her pockets. She hid behind the human's arm, trembling. The human knew the truth. He had made enemies. Last night's fight was only the beginning. The greedy ones would return, and next time, they would bring more men. He could not wait for them to strike again. He had to leave. That evening, as the sun sank into a red horizon, he packed quickly. A small bag of supplies, water, dried food, a spare blade. He gave the girl another clean cloth to wrap herself. She clutched it tight, still confused. Why? she whispered in her broken voice. Because it's not safe here, he answered. She didn't understand all the words, but she understood his tone. Danger, urgency. When night fell, they slipped out through the broken wall of the camp. The guards were busy drinking and laughing by the gate. Nobody noticed the shadow of a tall human and a small alien child vanishing into the wilderness. The world outside the camp was no kinder. The ground was cracked and dry, covered in old ruins, and broken machines from wars long forgotten. Rusted towers leaned like skeletons against the stars. The girl stumbled often, her feet weak from years of hunger. Each time the human lifted her onto his shoulders. She wrapped her thin arms around his neck, resting her head against him, while he carried her through the dark. But danger followed, close. The men he had fought were not done. They had seen him leave. They gathered others, hunters, mercenaries, criminals who chased coin more than life. With dogs and speeder bikes, they tracked the human and the girl. The chase began. The human heard them before he saw them, the roar of engines, the barking of dogs. He moved faster, slipping through ruins and broken streets. His lungs burned, but he did not stop. The girl clung tighter, her eyes wide with fear. "They're coming," she whispered. "I know," he said. The first speeder bike roared past the ruins, its lights sweeping the darkness. A shot cracked, dust exploding near their feet. The girl screamed. The human grabbed her hand and pulled her into a collapsed building. They ducked under broken beams, crawling through shadows as the hunters closed in. One of the mercenaries shouted, "Hand her over, human, she's worth more than your life." The human didn't answer. He kicked down a loose wall and pulled the girl through. Stones fell behind them, blocking the way. For every step they gained, the hunters pressed harder. The ruins turned into open desert and the moon lit their path. The girl's small legs struggled, but the human pushed her forward, whispering, "Run, don't stop." Behind them, lights glowed. More speeders, more men. A dog leapt from the shadows, snarling. The girl shrieked as its teeth snapped inches from her face. The human swung his blade, striking the beast down before it touched her. His arm shook, but his grip never faltered. He pulled her into his arms and ran again. The night turned into a storm of chaos, shouts, gunfire, growling engines. The girl buried her face against his chest, crying softly. She thought he would leave her behind to save himself. That's what everyone did. But he didn't. He carried her higher, climbing a rocky hill as bullets whined past them. At the top, the ruins opened into a canyon. For a moment, silence. Only their heavy breaths. The girl looked up at him, tears shining in her alien eyes. Why not leave me?" she whispered. The human looked at her, chest heaving, sweat dripping. His answer was simple. "Because you're mine to protect." Her heart shook. Nobody had ever claimed her before, not as trash, not as a slave, but as someone worth guarding. Before she could reply, lights appeared at the edge of the canyon. The hunters had found them again. The sound of engines echoed like thunder. The girl gasped. "No escape." The human's eyes narrowed. He wasn't ready to give up. He pulled her close, his hand gripping the blade tighter. But then above them, something unexpected cut through the night. A massive shadow moved across the stars. Engines hummed, deep and powerful. A ship, sleek, silver, glowing with strange symbols. It hovered above the canyon, blocking the hunters' path. The girl's breath caught in her throat. Her alien eyes widened with recognition. She knew that shape. She had seen it once before, long ago, in dreams of a life she thought lost. The human shielded her, ready for anything, but deep inside he wondered, who would arrive at such a moment and why? The chase was not ending. It was only changing. The canyon fell silent under the shadow of the ship. Its engines hummed like thunder hidden behind the clouds, shaking the rocks and scattering dust into the night air. The human tightened his grip on the girl, his blade still raised, his eyes never leaving the massive craft above. The hunters froze. Their bikes screeched to a stop, their dogs howled nervously. Greed had given them courage before, but now fear crept into their bones. This was no ordinary ship. Its silver hull glowed with markings that pulsed faintly like veins of light. The hunters recognized those symbols. They belonged to an ancient royal house. The little alien girl's breath caught. She pressed herself against the human's chest, her small fingers digging into his shirt. Her wide eyes shimmered with recognition, with memory. She whispered in her own tongue, words the human did not understand, but the tremble in her voice was clear. She knew this ship. A beam of white light shot down from the belly of the vessel, striking the canyon floor just meters away. Dust swirled around it, and then 3 figures appeared inside the light. Armored, tall, carrying staffs that glowed with energy. Their helmets curved like crowns, their eyes hidden behind glass, but their movements were sharp and disciplined. Royal Guards. The leader raised a hand, his voice echoing across the canyon. "Return the child to us." The hunters glanced at each other, confusion spreading like fire. One of them shouted, "She belongs to us. We found her first." His words trembled, but his greed still pushed him forward. He raised his weapon. The guard's staff flared. A crack of energy burst across the canyon, slamming into the hunter's weapon and sending him sprawling. The rest fell back instantly. They knew they were outmatched. No mercenary would dare fight the Royal Guard. The human stepped forward, pulling, the girl behind him. His voice was calm, steady. "She's not going with anyone." The leader tilted his head. "You do not understand. She is not a beggar. She is not trash. She is our princess." The human's grip on his blade tightened. His eyes flicked down to the girl. She was trembling, staring at the guards with a mix of fear and recognition. Her lips moved, whispering something soft, something only she and they could understand. The guard continued, his tone respectful but firm. "She was taken years ago during the fall of our capital. We searched every system, every camp. And now, we have found her. You hold the lost heir of the Orion throne." The human's heart pounded. He looked at the girl again. Really looked. The way she had changed with clean clothes, the way she carried herself even in weakness, the spark of dignity. He had seen. It all made sense now. She wasn't becoming something new. She was remembering who she truly was. But the girl shook her head violently. She clung tighter to the human's sleeve, hiding her face in his side. The guards extended their hands toward her, but she refused to move. Her voice broke in fear. "No. Please. No." The human knelt, meeting her eyes. "They say you're a princess," he said quietly. "Is it true?" Tears rolled down her cheeks. She couldn't form the words, but her silence was enough. The guard took a step closer. "She must return. Without her, the throne remains empty. Without her, our people will fall." The human stood tall again, his expression like stone. "She's terrified of you. She won't go." "She does not have a choice," the guard replied. The hunters had already fled into the night, leaving only the 3 armored figures, the ship and the human, with the girl clutching his arm. The canyon air was heavy with tension. The human's voice dropped to a growl. "Everyone has a choice." The girl looked up at him, her tears shining in the moonlight. For so long, she had been treated as trash, as something to be sold or beaten. But this man, this stranger, gave her food, clothes, and kindness. And now, even against royal guards, he stood for her. Her small hand pressed against his chest. She whispered one word she had repeated since the first night. "Please." But this time it wasn't just fear, it was trust. The guards exchanged glances. They had not expected resistance, not from a lone human. The leader lowered his staff slightly. "If you protect her, then know this. The Empire will come. Others will seek her, some to crown her, many to kill her. You cannot hide her forever." The human met his gaze without flinching. "Then they'll have to go through me." Silence hung heavy. The guards didn't strike. They didn't drag her away by force. Instead, the leader spoke one final warning. "The crown will find her. Whether by her choice or by blood, Destiny will not be denied. With that, they stepped back into the beam of light. In seconds, the ship roared and rose higher, vanishing into the stars. The canyon grew quiet again. The girl collapsed into the human's arms, sobbing. He held her close, whispering softly, though he wasn't sure if she understood. "You're safe. I won't let them take you. Not unless you want to go." Above them, the stars glittered, cold and distant. The revelation had changed everything. She was no longer just a starving child. She was a princess, the lost heir to a fallen throne. And he was no longer just a wanderer. He had become her guardian, standing between her and a galaxy full of enemies. The human tightened his grip on his blade, staring into the dark horizon. He knew this was only the beginning. The desert stretched silent under a silver dawn. The canyon's shadows were fading, but the memory of the royal guards still lingered like a storm cloud over the human and the little alien girl. She sat close to him, her small hands gripping his sleeve as if letting go would mean losing everything. Her wide eyes still carried fear, but also something stronger, trust. The human looked down at her. "Princess," he whispered. The word felt strange on his tongue. She didn't respond. To her, he wasn't speaking a title. He was speaking to the fragile child who had eaten scraps and fought dogs to live another day. She shook her head softly, her voice breaking. "Not princess, just me." He nodded slowly. "Then just you." For a few days they traveled, across the wasteland, avoiding roads, hiding from patrols, moving only at night. The human hunted small animals, cooked what little he could, and gave her the best portions. She grew a little stronger each day, though still thin and weak. But her posture had changed. She walked straighter now. She looked around with more courage. That spark of dignity he had seen before was growing into a flame, but danger was never far. At every trading post, whispers grew louder. The lost heir, the Orion bloodline, the alien princess found. Some wanted to protect her, many wanted to capture her, all wanted something. At last, their path brought them to a ruined city on the edge of the desert. Towering spires half buried, in sand-broken statues, shattered glass domes. Once it had been beautiful. Now it was nothing but echoes. The human found a place to rest inside a broken hall, but as the girl wandered through the ruins, her eyes widened. She knew this place. She touched the broken walls with trembling fingers. Strange symbols carved in stone glowed faintly at her touch. Her memory stirred. Flashes of golden halls, songs of her people, voices calling her name. She stumbled back, whispering, "Home." The human watched carefully. "This was your city?" She nodded slowly, tears filling her eyes. The ruins. Around them were more than rubble. They were the remains of her world. And now, standing in the heart of it, she remembered who she truly was. But they weren't alone. As the sun set, figures gathered at the edge of the city. Some carried banners of noble houses. Others carried weapons. The rumor had spread too far. They had come for her. The human placed himself in front of her again, blade in hand. "Stay behind me." From the crowd, an elder stepped forward, draped in long robes, his voice trembling with reverence. "Princess, at last. We searched for you for years. Without you, our people are lost. With you, the throne can rise again." The girl's body shook. Everyone stared at her as if she carried the weight of 1,000 lives. She clutched the human's arm tighter. "No, don't want," the elder pleaded. "It is your destiny." The human's voice cut through like steel. "Destiny is a chain. She's free now. She chooses," the crowd murmured, shocked by his defiance. The elder's face hardened. "You are only human. You do not understand what she means to us." The human raised his chin. "I understand enough. She's not a crown, she's not a throne, she's a child." The girl looked up at him, her tears falling fast. For the first time in her life, Someone had spoken for her, not about her. He had given her a choice. She stepped forward trembling and faced the crowd. Her voice was soft but clear. I was lost. I was nothing. I ate from trash. No one saw me. Only him. She pointed to the human. He gave me food. He gave me water. He gave me. The crowd fell silent. Her words were broken, her language mixed, but her meaning was powerful. She turned back to the human, her small hands holding his. I don't want crown, I want family. You. The human's chest tightened. He had expected her to choose the safety of her people, to leave him behind. But instead, she chose him. She chose kindness over blood, trust over duty. The elder lowered his head, defeated. The crowd whispered in shock. Some wanted to argue, but none could fight the truth in her voice. She wasn't just an heir. She was a person, and she had chosen. The human lifted her into his arms, holding her close. He faced the crowd with steady eyes. You heard her. She's not yours. She's not for sale, not for power, not for war. She's free. The wind howled through the ruins, carrying his words into the night. The people slowly dispersed, their dreams of a crowned savior fading. Some bowed in respect. Others walked away in anger. But none dared touch her again. As the last of the crowd vanished, the girl rested her head against the human's chest. Her whisper was faint but full of peace. Safe. The human looked at the stars above the broken city. He knew challenges would still come. Others would search for her, hunt her, try to claim her. But as long as he lived, none would succeed. Because he didn't see a crown, he didn't see a throne. He saw a child who had eaten scraps like a dog, yet carried the spirit of a princess. And to him, that was worth protecting forever.